Welcome to our YouTube channel, talking today about sharing on social before you feel like you're ready. So say you haven't opened your doors yet, or you haven't even started practice yet, but you still know a ton and you understand that you have to start networking ahead of time. You have to be prepared. You have to start building those relationships because they take a really long time. I believe it's important mostly to use social media as a way to help people understand who you are and why you're doing the things that you're doing. So that leads me to number one, it's sharing your personality. So the most important thing on social, even when you feel like you're not prepared, when you feel like you're not ready, when you feel like you're not there, you're dealing with imposter syndrome, the most important thing at the end of the day truly is just sharing your personality, having people understand who you are, what you're made of, the things that you enjoy, the things that make you unique and special and, your own person. The personality part of social media and sharing is really about telling people who you are so they can trust you. Trust ends up being one of the most important tools in running a practice and building your profession. So if you're sharing your personality and who you are, you're allowing people to get to know you and trust you, and that takes a long time. For example, I love to be out on the farm that I live on walking the field. That's something I very much enjoy. When we had ducks, we don't right now, but when we do, I really enjoy that. I love gardening. I love going to my kids' sporting events because I have kids. Just things like that, things that make you unique and make you who you are. And it's important for people to get to know you. And you don't have to overshare either. If there are things you don't really want to share on the daily, that's okay. You don't have to tell people what you're doing every day or who you're with. There are ways to share your personality and the things that you love without oversharing. And I've talked about that in previous YouTube long forms surrounding niche practice and, specialized care. So if you haven't seen that, go watch it. But the second thing to posting before you feel like you're ready is sharing your experience in the field that you're going into. So one of the most important things to really honor in what it is that you do is that there's usually kind of a reason behind the thing that you're doing, right? You have some sort of experience in the thing that you're doing. For me, my experience came from a season that was kind of unexpected. I was in my third year of undergrad. I worked for a chiropractor and I watched people walk in crippled and walk out smiling. I mean, that's how it felt anyway. And I fell in love with the profession. That was not my plan. I'm a chemist. I was going into chemistry and I had no intention of going into chiropractic. In fact, I was going into pharmacy, and I switched gears almost seemingly overnight in watching this profession and experiencing it. Those are the types of things you can share with people just in telling your story. Tell them what you know about it just based on your experiences. Maybe, for some people going into chiropractic, maybe they grew up seeing a chiropractor and so that's their experience and they know a ton about it on the patient side. So there are a lot of things you can talk about even when you haven't started your own practice, a lot of things that you can share about in regard to experiences. The third thing is sharing your why. So it's really important to tell people, to share with people why it is that you feel so passionately about the thing that you do, why it drives you every day. My why nowadays is very different than it was when I first started. My why now is a lot more driven by the specialty care that we serve our patients with every day in our clinic. It stemmed from motherhood for me. Obviously in the beginning that wasn't the case. Well, not obviously, if you don't know me, you don't know that I wasn't a mother when I started practice in general. I wasn't. 15 years ago was when I started, and I didn't have kids. I wasn't married. So life was a lot different then, but you can talk about your why every step of the way. And your why is your passion. It's the thing that patients see in you that makes them believe everything that you're talking about, that helps them understand why the stuff that you're teaching them is so important. It's just really important to share your why and help them understand, what it is you feel about it, and why it impacts your life and others' lives so strongly. Lastly, it's to share your actual expertise. So if you haven't started practice yet, you aren't necessarily treating yet, but you are still in school, or maybe you've just graduated, you know so much more than you realize you know. You have expertise that the general public does not have. And I think we forget that. I think we feel sometimes that we need to have all of this backing to share the things that we do know. And I think we forget how extensive a lot of our training is. And so if you're not a chiropractor and you're from a different profession, it'll differ a little bit from what I'm talking about. But for us, we spend, nearly 4 years in undergrad, but then we go on to spend, 4 to 5 years in grad school becoming doctors. And so along that path, you're learning so much. I mean, your brain is on hyperdrive learning stuff. And you can share that. You can share your expertise and your information and your knowledge for the good of your community, even before you've started practice. I mean, you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to, you certainly can't say based on your experience as a practicing practitioner, as a practicing professional, but you can also disclose that you haven't graduated, but this is something super interesting that you learned in class, or this is something super interesting that you learned from a fellow professional. And that is just as relevant and just as important as or sometimes as something that somebody's talking about who's been in practice for a long time. In fact, some of that new knowledge is just invaluable, right? New knowledge is sometimes as good, if not better, than old knowledge. It just depends. It just depends on what you're referencing. So I think it's really important to share, even if you don't feel like you're ready to do it, and practice making things very unique to who you are. Play with it, get comfortable with it. So to recap, share your personality, share your experience in the field, share your why, and share your expertise. That's all I got for you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. You guys drive this thing, ask the questions, and enjoy your day.